Hello, this is Johnny Hill. You can follow me online at www.johnnybhill.com. I am so excited today for so many different reasons, but especially because today marks the launch of the Poor People's Campaign and 40 Days of Action. Today, all across the nation and the world, faith leaders and ordinary citizens are gathering to launch the Poor People's Campaign and the 40 Days of Action led by Reverend William Barber, a pastor from North Carolina. The Poor People's Campaign began in 1967 with Martin Luther King Jr.'s courageous vision of Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, Illinois. It initially started with an effort to raise awareness about the deep and pervasive issue of poverty in the country, because Dr. King recognized that civil rights means very little if you can't eat, if you don't have a place to stay, if you don't have a decent job. So by this time, Dr. King was turning his attention toward human rights and not merely civil rights on the backdrop of the Vietnam War. He exposed the blatant and painful contradictions of America's misplaced priorities. How is it, he asked, that we can spend billions of dollars on war and we can't seem to find the money to abolish poverty in this nation once and for all? So now, 50 years later, on the anniversary of Dr. King's assassination and his mountaintop speech on April 4th, 1968, we are confronted again with the painful and urgent question and the urgency of now. The shocking disparities between rich and poor have become so troubling. 95% of the nation's wealth, get that now, 95% of all of the wealth in the nation lies in the hands of just 5% or less of the population. This is not by accident, friends, but this is the result of years and years of neo-capitalism and privatization of the markets that bends towards the very rich. And then it's simply just outright greed and exploitation and domination by those who are in control and those who have power. So what it means for the church and people of faith all around the world, regardless of your socioeconomic status. But if a person believes themselves to be a Christian, if they believe themselves to believe in Jesus Christ, believe in the God who revealed God's self in Jesus Christ, for people of faith and for people who are part of the church and Christian community across this nation and across the world, what it represents is a moment of decision. It is a moment of moral and spiritual reckoning. It is a kairos moment. We must raise the courageous question of where is God in the midst of this moment that we're living in today, where we see outright greed and the exploitation of the rich on the backs of the poor, and the fact that we have forgotten those who are most vulnerable in our society. In the midst of popular culture that tends to sort of divert our attention from the deep and painful issues that's happening in our society, we have to ask the question, where is God? And whose side is God on in the midst of this struggle? Is God standing with the ultra rich and powerful who hoard their wealth and engage in wasteful spending in the midst of hungry children? Or is God standing with the weak and vulnerable, the outcast, the poor, and the downtrodden of our world? On this day, I urge all of us to let our voices be heard, to know and to proclaim from whence we stand. As for me, I stand with the poor and I stand with God. I believe God is on the side of the poor, that God is on the side of those who are suffering, those who are marginalized, those who are broken, those who do not have enough food, clothing, and shelter, those who are hurting the most among us. I believe God is on their side, and I stand with God and those who are poor. On this day, from the streets of Southside Chicago and Bankhead, Georgia, and Watts, California, to the trailer parks of the Deep South and the slums and ghettos of the North, let us all stand up. Let us stand up for what we believe to be the right thing to do with the fierce urgency of now. Let us stand up to proclaim God's goodness and God's grace and God's love and God's justice for this present moment. Now is the time. Now is our time all around the world to let our voices be heard. Because as we stand for justice, we stand for truth, and we stand for goodness and God's love in the world all across America. But in doing so, we also carry the cries of oppressed people and hungry children all around the world as well, from the starving children of Haiti and Ethiopia to the traumatized peoples of Syria and all around the world. It's our time. Now is our moment. Now is our chance to do what God would have us to do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.